the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors to order at 6:05 p.m. Today is Wednesday, February 5th, 2020, and we are in the MRUSD boardroom. We have 8 board members present, representing 7.5 votes. The first item on the agenda is the agenda review. Can I get a motion to, or are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Al.
Second.
Thank you, Jack. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7.5 to 0. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 4, visitors. Do we have any visitors here who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none. Item 5, district presentation.
I think that's me.
That's you.
I just need to get way over on the last one. Yeah, I'm just having a hard time seeing and driving. Did you didn't...
I didn't open it that way, no. The little red button.
Jeff?
Sorry.
Just trying to get to that one.
Thank you. This is kind of...
Yeah, the mouse.
The mouse. Okay. So thank you. This is a presentation that's very similar but cut down some from what we had worked with the faculty during the January in-service and with a parent meeting that was done on January, second week of January. Sorry, I don't remember the date. Really to kind of give you an update of the progress report. You've asked for that as a board, to be updated on where we are with scoring and reporting, but overall of where we're going. At about halfway through, I'm gonna keep the handouts right now because you're gonna dive into them and not see what's on the presentation, but then I'm gonna give you some handouts and examples of where we're going so that I think we have enough for everybody in here, so that I can point it out. It's easier than having it up on the slide. We do have some slides, but it's easier to sometimes have a piece of paper in front of you as well. So Sarah and I are doing this together, and just make sure you've got my pieces here. So we'll move on. Wanted to give you a little bit of, as you know, we've had several forums, we've had conversation at board meetings, and we're just trying to be really clear on what we've heard, and try to condense it down really to one slide here, and that's hard to do. But one of the things we've really heard about some improvements that need to be made is we need a scoring and reporting system that's easily understood by all. That everyone, students, parents, staff, know how the scores are assessed and calculated. Standardized across the calculation method across the schools. And the ones that were the loudest on that, frankly, were the staff. And before they weren't, they admitted. They said, we admit we want things done by departments. We've got to make it standard across the school. And we're working on that. I'll give you some information where we are. Create a wider range of scores that receive a proficient score. As you know, in our current system, we have a 3 or a 4 is awarded credit, and that we heard from students and parents and from the staff that we need to have more delineation beyond receiving credit for the course. Clearly communicate the student achievement to post-secondary institutions so that they can understand that, and we've had some feedback from post-secondary institutions. We currently have for this year's seniors, and where we're going with for the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. We also heard we need a letter grade. We heard that from students and parents.
Not from institutions.
Not from within the institutions. We've actually heard from many institutions we don't need a letter grade, and especially from UVM and the Vermont State Colleges. And then this question was asked, and so probably should have a question mark at the end. are you in alignment with Chittenden County Schools? So we're going to talk about the process. We've had a lot of work, my experience in doing this at other systems, and other colleagues that I've worked with in Vermont and across the nation that I know in other states. This is a 3 to 4 year lift that we're trying to do in 1 year right now. So we're really compacting it, and I have to thank the group that's been the biggest help has been the BFA department chairs. They have been phenomenal, and they just every time we bring them something, they're either good about, yep, it works, or hey, did you think about this? And we make a better solution. So they've been tremendous. Just can't thank them enough. Oh, and this last thing that we heard, and we're working on this. I know you can always get better at this, but communication must improve from BFA to everyone. So that has to happen. Come on. Okay, it's just a little.
Okay, so we took what we got from the community when we had the parent forums and working with the teachers to come up with what our goals are for scoring and reporting. So we know that we needed a system that we could have buy-in from all stakeholders. Okay, without that buy-in from all stakeholders, it wasn't going to work. Okay, so we've worked really hard to come up with a way that we can regain confidence in our scoring and reporting system. And part of that was going to the community and having that cooperative effort to figure out what our goals should be. To make explicit how the scoring and reporting works, some of that has been going down to each individual class and having the scoring and reporting guides in the syllabus for each class. And the syllabi for all of the classes were put up on the website last week. So all of that scoring and reporting information is explicitly stated on those syllabus. And as we continue to progress through our different iterations and improve upon the system, that scoring and reporting information will also be updated on the syllabus. We wanted to make sure that our rigor across departments and courses were similar, so that if you have a class in English or a score in English and a score in math, you're going to be able to match the rigor of whatever that score is. And then communication about how student scores are relating to their transcripts, graduation, proficiency, and their PPA, which is proficiency point average. And of course, using best practice research to talk about how we're doing this with all stakeholders involved. So this is just the timeline of some of the work that we've been doing over the last few months on our scoring reporting system. It started in October with really looking at the way that the scores have been calculated across all classes, and then working with PowerSchool to make sure that our technology is working properly, and looking at the system. And what we found from our PowerSchool audit is that the system is just too complex, which is why we were getting a lot of errors back at the beginning of the school year when kind of all of this came to light. We've been working with PowerSchool since, and with our own IT department, to streamline and to standardize everything. We did standardize scoring in October, and we had a really great victory the last couple weeks when we ended up at the end of semester 2. The number of errors had gone from our first round of hundreds down to a very small number. Our department heads have come together over and over again to analyze other schools' proficiency systems to make sure that we can learn from our colleagues across the state to see what we think is working, what could work in our own community, and what we'd like to implement. We've looked at regulations, we've drafted our goals, and as far as our transcripts and live report cards, we hired an outside firm to work on those. And actually, the updated transcripts for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors will be ready in the coming weeks. So that's coming up. We've had staff in service to collaborate. We've had parent forums. Live report cards have already been implemented, and senior transcripts are out. And then we added the course syllabus to the website, And like it says, transcripts for lowerclassmen will be coming out shortly. So it's been a lot of really good work with a lot of different stakeholders. So this piece here came from a meeting that we had in this room with department heads. It was about a 4-hour intensive meeting where we went over all of the Vermont education quality standards. Each department head read all the quality standards. We had an open discussion where we looked at the standards and we tried to condense it into a statement that kind of puts it all together for us. And so that statement is up there. I won't read it for you, but basically we know that the PBGRs need to align with our state-approved standards, which most of our standards were already aligned to that, and that they need to be at a rigor where 90% of the students can achieve the graduation requirements over a 4-year span.
Okay, so this chart represents what we had in a Carnegie unit letter grade system. And what happens is, and I'm going to stand up because I think it's easier for me to explain it, but you would have a course grade in any class that you took that the teacher that taught that class could determine how that grade was determined. There was not a standard metric across any classes or anything within. If you had with the same course, let's say Algebra 1, you had 2 different teachers, or Global Studies, they didn't necessarily have the same way to calculate the grade. You could have effort in there, you could have behavior in there, you could have academic achievement in there. And what was common was the way the grade was expressed in a letter grade percentage number system. That gave you, what you got on there was you would get a grade point for that course, that class that you took, and it would be multiplied by the number of credits that course was worth, if it was a half credit course or a full credit, and then summing all those up and getting your average would give you your GPA. At BFA, there's 24 credits. There are 17, I believe, classes that you have to take, and the rest are electives that give you course credit, and then when you had those 24 credits, you get graduation. Can you press the next one for me, Sarah? What happens when we go to a proficiency system is that we're now looking at transferable skills, which was the work habits, the effort in the class is going and being represented in transferable skills, but the achievement on the content is now going in to get us a standard score. And so that content, which makes up, if we take something like English, it has 4 different standards that are within it. We're trying to use the word standard. We're also trying to standardize our vocabulary. So there was, at BFA, until January 1st, we had multiple words meaning the same thing. You would have heard proficiencies, standards, parent standards. So we're trying to condense the vocabulary, so we use one word means one thing. And so we're calling them standards. They are just standards. And so students in English, they have 4 standards. Well, that course score is related to that content standard. What we're also doing is saying we standardize, as Sarah said earlier, we standardize how that standard score is developed for all classes. In that it's an average of the last 10 indicator scores. Indicators are there are parts that make up the standard, is probably the easiest way to say it. That's a good way to go.
So each standard has a number of indicators that feed into the standard score.
Yeah.
And so the standardized grading is that the last 10 scores from each individual indicator is going to be taken in order to make that standard score.
And it can be done at the basement level, it's an average, but we're also talking about trend scoring. So if you see that a kid's really improving, which this is the idea of the proficiency-based learning, that you can increase that score if you have evidence of that as a teacher. But what the basement is the average. And then those standard scores are averaged together to get a course score. This is what we were doing to get course scores for the seniors for this year, and that's what we're doing in every course score. What we're looking at right now this year, and this is where I want to be really clear. This year, we looked at trying to change the scoring levels and getting, as we said earlier, we heard that people wanted more scores for above proficient or for getting credit in the course. We wanted to do that, but after some modeling, and I have to thank, this is where I said I thank the department heads, they were the first ones to say, wait, we're gonna be getting too many apples and oranges this year, and we could possibly hurt kids. So we need to stay with a scoring of a 3 or 4 for this year. Next year, starting next year, we're gonna have at a 2.5 and a 3.5, and at a 2.5, and we'll show you this later, will be awarded credit. But that's happening next school year, not this school year.
So, Bill, just a question, and it's about the difference between in-seat time versus proficiencies. It almost looks like that if, kids are proficient at a 2.5 next year, that halfway through the year, then they awarded credit and they're done for the year?
No, right now we run on a course system, and you get that credit, you have to have this score at the end of the course, whether it's a year-long course or a semester-long course.
So you're not suggesting that halfway through the course, if they're at 2.5, their credit is awarded?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
So it really is, in a sense, in-seat time?
Yes,
Okay.
It's a hybrid.
it's a hybrid system.
Okay,
And
so-
what we heard what we heard clearly from the community, I mean, and some schools, South Burlington's one of them, going away from seat time. And the way we go away from seat time is have no credits
Okay.
and track
Great.
proficiencies.
I had heard that early on, that we're not looking at seat time anymore, but clearly we are.
The statute requires that we don't have seat time. Not the statute, but the regulation. When you analyze the regulation, it says time cannot be a factor in reaching proficiency.
And if it's only half year, then they haven't possibly, depending on what the course is, right? If it's a math course, they haven't even gotten to some of the
Okay,
standards.
I just want to be clear, because it almost looked like halfway through the year, if they were proficient at 2.5, they could be done.
No, but some
Okay.
of our semester, it's when the course ends. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, that's what I mean.
our community's not ready for us to go away from credits.
Yeah.
That's my analysis, is they're
Yeah,
not ready
I
for
would
us to.
agree with you.
Okay, so we're still gonna have credits, we're still gonna have 24 credits, we're still gonna have the required credits in the different areas, we're not changing any of that.
And we
What
have more opportunity for flexible pathways, which you can get to the point of how much seat time or lack thereof a student needs in order to reach that standard through a flexible pathway.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, is that the flexible pathway is what really opens it up for us, for kids either who wanna be accelerated or need more learning opportunity in those standards. Both ways, it's not an either or, it can help for both. We're gonna still have a PPA, we're still talking about whether we're gonna bring this back to a GPA. In talking with the universities and colleges that we have, they said don't get over analyzing about PPA or GPA, we're gonna treat the number either way. So what you call it is what you call it. I think it's just better to call it a GPA and leave it at that. And then those 24 credits will get you to graduation. So really what we've changed is that we're trying to be clear about what you have to learn, and clear with feedback of how you're doing learning that. And that's the whole basis of proficiency-based learning, it's really not about how you score, it's really about, are you giving kids multiple attempts and taking time out of the equation for learning? And that proficiency is about being really clear about what the target is or what you need to learn. So a teacher in the classroom saying this is the learning target, and then giving feedback to the student, primarily, parents secondary, of how the student's doing towards that learning target.
And Bill, is the expectation that teachers are informing students about what time frame, like if they're going to be teaching a unit for a certain amount of time, you have till this point?
So I gotta say, we're gonna tackle that, but we haven't tackled it yet. Right now, it's a real kind of, like, we're being really methodical because you're gonna see some things in a bit that we really had to establish what's our philosophy as BFA, why we're doing this.
And you're trying to do a school-wide, not classroom.
We're doing, there's both. Let me say it's both.
Let me say, on the syllabus that were just posted, every teacher did include a redo, retake policy and a timeline for when work will be accepted. So it is very clear to the students, but we haven't had a school-wide, so it's more by department at this point.
And what
It is
about
explicit.
AP courses versus non-AP courses? Because there was discrepancy, right, before around some people saying that if you achieved a 3 in an AP course, there wasn't room to bring it up to a 4, but if you were a 2, then you could bring it up, to proficiency. So when you talked before about, the rigor for all grade level, across disciplines, how does it work within AP courses?
So AP courses have to follow the AP curriculum that's prescribed from the, Mike help me, who is it? It's College Board. From College Board, they have to follow that.
Right, the
So,
curriculum,
right.
not the grading.
Correct. I'm gonna say this, and I've said this in many public meetings. Every teacher has to have learning opportunities that allows every child to be able to get to a 4. Doesn't mean they will, but they have to have the opportunity. You can't, a teacher cannot say, I don't give 4s. It's like saying, I don't give A's.
I think that's still a discrepancy in some AP courses.
Is that part of the flexible pathways that, I guess, where does, what exactly, what is the example of the flexible pathway then? Maybe I'm getting lost where.
Yeah, that's not AP courses.
Okay.
So,
Why wouldn't it be, I guess? Would that be part of the flexible
not a college
pathway for students, like one would go down here, here, and here? Is that part of that? What is the definition?
I'm not following your question.
She's asking to define more so.
What is flexible pathway?
Okay, so flexible pathways mean that other opportunities to show that you've achieved learning in a standard that's not in a traditional classroom course. It can be done, it could be through an employment, it could be through service learning, it could be done through a course, an online course. Dual enrollment. So there's many other ways besides just taking a class at BFA.
Can I just say one last thing? And I've said this to you before.
I really want to get back to my,
Okay, sorry.
to my piece. So I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it probably, I'm going to make a bold assumption here, but I think it's going to go in line with what Sue was asking, just about to ask, which is focusing on the juniors. And I understand that you have a process, and I understand that you guys are working on this. But focusing in on the juniors right now who are taking AP courses, right? Mm-hmm. So they got semester 1 grades. Mm-hmm. But if there's still discrepancies with how kids are being assessed in those AP courses in terms of is everybody allowed, if you do have a 3, are you allowed to attain a 4 with either redos or sorry, I'm losing some words here, redos or makeups or whatever, then we still have issues. So if you're talking about, it's a great idea to move next year, right, to that 2.5 or 3.5, but we have kids where their junior year is their most important year right now. So I think there's still work I'm assuming that there's still work that needs to be done for that piece, because they have to know where they are and what they're allowed to strive for, and if they stop at that 3, or if they're allowed, to go on, because I still feel like I'm being told by students, and I have one myself who's a junior, who's saying that they're being told that they can't redo 3s for some of their AP courses.
Talk to me about it outside this public meeting, because I don't want to violate your students' privacy.
Okay, all right, so I'm just saying, all the work that's being done is awesome, and I just hope that we're also prioritizing to the juniors in terms of making sure that they have clear guidelines of what is achievable for them right now. Because will that change, or is that subject to change come the end of the school year?
Without having the conversation I just asked to have,
Yep.
I can't answer your question.
All right, and I'm not trying to ask a specific question, I'm trying to be more global, I guess is what I'm saying.
But I thought the global was going to include juniors, sophomores, and freshmen.
It is. When they talked before about talking to all classes, the rigor, right, across all disciplines, my specific question is around AP courses. So I was wondering if that is something that you have specifically talked to department heads.
No,
about.
I've talked about all classes being to the same rigor level, because it doesn't matter what level we're talking about, whether it's a freshman course or an AP.
Right.
When we talked about cognitive complexity, it doesn't matter the level of the learning. Cognitive complexity at first grade and at AP, we're talking about deep understanding and learning.
I'm not talking about the kids, I'm talking about the perception of assessment with staff. That's what I'm talking about specifically.
So all staff,
Are all staff under the impression, has that been discussed?
Yes.
That all staff are under the same impression, even on the AP level, that there's one way to do it now?
I'm
And that
not
they can't
following you,
achieve
Joanna.
Which
John, I'm
is-
sorry, I just cannot follow you right now in this format.
Okay, I'll make it real clear. Has it been discussed amongst all disciplines, all department heads, as far as AP courses go, are students allowed to go from 3s to 4s?
No, I have not tackled that,
Okay,
and it's just not a place where we're at right now.
okay, well, I think it's a place that needs to be addressed specifically for students who are juniors. Because they are in their junior year, their most important academic year, as they prepare for applying for schools, and it's critical for them. So that's what Sue was talking about meetings ago when she asked about prioritizing the work that needed to be done. And I get that you need to start from the bottom and work the way up. But this is important and critical for those students now. There has to be a plan for that to be happening simultaneously with the work that you are doing. Does that make sense?
I hear you.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to me.
it makes sense to me. I feel that. The one thing I am gonna say, it was, earlier it was talked about consistent language.
Yeah.
And what I'm gonna say is, proficiency point average, proficiency scoring is very different from grades. When I hear someone's grade point average, I assume, like I think probably most of us do, we're talking about A, B, C, D, and F. And so, for clarity, I think it is important if we're gonna be if we're averaging all of the proficiencies to come up with a final
Yeah.
score, that we call it what it is, which is a proficiency point average.
And I understand that's your viewpoint. I'm telling you what the consumers of the transcripts are telling me, that they're going to treat it as a grade point average. Okay. I can't change your viewpoint. That's what I'm getting back from universities and colleges.
So they're gonna treat it as a grade point average?
Yep.
The same, so why wouldn't we just call it a proficiency point average?
I think it's just confusing if we do.
They are being converted to letter grades, if that helps.
Anyway, you're gonna see this on that. Let's get through this whole thing. It's
Okay.
still,
Okay.
all right? This mouse is we were there. So this is just another way of showing what we showed in the other two slides, but the idea that to get to graduation, you have to have 24 credits. You get credit from if your course score is above a certain standard, just as it was in a letter grade, we had anything above an F. Now we're saying for this year it's above a 3, next year it'll be a 2.5. That course score comes from the standards, the average of the standards, or trend upwards. Those the indicators can inform if there are indicators. Some of our content areas don't have indicators, they just have standards. And all of that is indicated by the student performance. So the student performance is tracked by the indicators and the standards. Those average up to give a course score. The course score goes to a credit, and the 24 credits gets you to graduation. I think this ladder really kind of indicates how all these are connected together. Okay. One of the things we really wanted to do was, and it's something that we really needed to do, we started with the department heads, and went on to, oh, sorry, Sarah.
It's okay.
It's supposed to be you.
You're on a roll.
Yeah.
Okay, so we asked these 3 questions to the department heads during our different department head retreats. We also asked these same questions to the parents during the parent forum. And we were happy to see that the answers that we got from both groups were very similar. So we asked, why do we assess student learning? We had these big Post-it notes all over the room. We had the department heads and the parents break up into small groups and go around to each of those to answer the questions as a group. They discussed, and then they came up with their answer or words that they thought would go into the definition. And so when we all got back together and we discussed what we saw, we came up with these statements. So why do we assess student learning? We assess student learning to give feedback, to promote growth for the student, and to inform instruction for the teacher. Why do we have report cards and progress reports? Reports inform stakeholders of students' progress toward graduation requirements. They also inform instruction and the need for and/or the effectiveness of interventions. And why do we have a transcript? Transcripts are a formal report of student learning outcomes that informs stakeholders of a student's best next steps. And across the board with the staff and with the discussion with parents, we came up with very similar definitions. So that informed our next steps and how we developed the scoring and reporting.
Okay.
You want this?
Yep, let's hand that out.
I'm sorry.
And we'll let that get around. No, those are made up. I would have left that out.
There's a name on page 2.
It's made up.
Okay.
It's made up.
I just said the same thing.
It's made up. This is that's
I
a
said the
made
same
up.
thing earlier when I looked at it.
Name your student test.
John Doe.
John Doe,
That's
yeah,
funny.
it's all made up. It's all made up.
It's all
You
the
notice,
same class.
if you notice, it's all the same
class.
class. It's all the same class.
Okay, so on the first page, what you're seeing is the current senior transcript. So this is the transcript that was developed after the first few iterations that we had at the beginning of the year. It shows what classes they've passed, the grades, the credit, and then the year in progress is at the bottom. If you turn it over, you will also see what their average for their transferable skill scores are of self-direction and responsible and involved citizenship. It gives you the description of the scores, also Northwest Tech Center scores, and then a traditional grading and conversion scale.
So that's the transcript for this year. This question, I'll take.
If these students were graded, how did you get, like say, in the accelerated writing workshop, the very first one, their final grade was a B. If they were just given 3s and 4s, how
So
did
that
you get a 3.2?
So that freshman year, they were
Okay.
converted to letter grades for this year's seniors only. So it's only this year's senior class that there were letter grades given as well as proficiency scores.
Okay.
So that's data that was
Their
there.
freshman year
Their
was
freshman
not
year, it was a combination of both. So that ended with this year's seniors, there will not be, for juniors, sophomores and freshmen, that's not the case. And it's
So
a one-off.
junior is not gonna have a 3.2, because that's not.
Let me go through
Yeah.
the rest of what we're gonna do here. So the next page you'll see is the draft of, and it's made up, it's totally fictitious. A couple people asked me about names. The Jonathan Fairchild is a made-up name. As you'll see, it's all one course right there with different scores. But we will be working on a proficiency-based system, but converting to letter grades and having an overall PPA, GPA.
We have that slide.
And I should probably show that slide. It might show it up here too. It's the same as what you have a handout as.
I don't think that one's gonna work, just keep going to the next.
Just go to the next one. No. I don't think we have that slide. Oh, yeah, okay. So this is draft right now. We're still talking about this conversion scale. We don't take it as this is the conversion scale. Everyone hear me? This is draft. We have not had the conversations in the school right now, but we're looking at having letter grades for anything above a 2.5 to convert to a letter grade from a course score. As I said, we heard that we needed to have letter grades. We are still trying to decide is it an A or is it an A+. We haven't made that decision final. That hasn't really had much of a conversation within the school system. Within the teachers, we've looked at this. We haven't had a protocol to say, what do we think about this? There are a couple other systems out there. If you look across Vermont and across the United States, when they convert from a proficiency, mastery, or standard score to a letter grade, there are different ones that are out there. So this is just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, all right? As you see on this transcript, you'll see the letters and you'll see the credits. You would see all the years. That's all in the left-hand column. On the right-hand column, if it was something that was not a class taught at BFA, or it was dual enrollment, because we do 2 classes, accounting and pre-calc, that are taught at BFA, but they get CCV credit, they will be in the top of that flexible pathways box. So it could be a dual enrollment, it could be a community-based learning, it could be workplace. You could have things with Northwest Tech Center can be in there as well. Then the next box down on the right-hand side, you'll see the current year in progress. Okay? Then you will see the transferable skills, all 5 of them, the average for that academic year, and the cumulative average for each of the 5 transferable skills. That, on the current one for the seniors, that's on the back, and the seniors have only been kept track in 2 of the 5 transferable skills. That's why we only give 2 of them there. And then at the bottom, for any academic honors, whether it's honor rolls or pins, we'll be listing those at the bottom in that right-hand side. Okay? This right now, we just yesterday got our first draft of the electronic report, and we're testing to see if it's actually calculating correctly. We have not published any underclassmen in this format yet. Our goal is to have that done by the end of this month. We've been saying it's February, the contractor has a February due date, and then to be able to get those out to students and parents. So.
For freshmen, sophomore, and junior.
Freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, yep, you'd have it.
So your 3.2 on here says an A-, but your 3.2 on
That's
there.
what, I'm going back to what I said.
You said that already?
I said that is draft.
Okay, gotcha.
There's nothing, draft, concept.
Got it.
And you'll make sure that the grading system for dual enrollment classes matches up with the.
You can't. I can tell you that right now, Susanna. The different places our kids go for dual enrollment, they're different.
Will online, you mean, so some of this is online?
No, some of this, if you take a kid that goes to UVM and CCV, they have different grading scales.
Well, right now they have the same grading scale,
I can just tell you.
like a 4.0 grade point scale.
Right, but they're different at different places across kids. I can't tell you which institutions, but we've looked at enough institutions that what considers a 4.0 at one institution, they might have an A+, and an A+ can happen at CCV that can go up to a 4.33.
Okay, so I guess I would hope we would look at the what the majority is. Like I know that both CCV and UVM have a 4.0 grading, so if you get A or an A plus, it's still a 4.0.
Not at CCV.
So they must have changed that this year, because
It's a
last year it
4.3.
was.
It's a 4.3
So they
according to
changed that this
Preston.
year, must be. Because last year when anyways.
So it's different. It's just different. I wish it was the same. It'd make it a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think it would clear up, because really, it's like averaging apples and fire hydrants when we're mixing all these different systems together. It doesn't really make sense.
And that's what was happening before.
Right. It's no different, it's just different.
It's what, yeah.
So, I know at Richard, I know that they have the AP courses on a 5-point scale. Is that, are you looking to do something like that
No.
as well?
No, we're not looking to weight courses. We did it, we're not, it's something that BFA has never done. We're finding, we've surveyed across almost all the high schools in Vermont. I know we've done the northern tier, because Kevin, you were the one that asked. We know that Enosburg is the only school in northern Vermont that weights, and they're coming out of it. They said that that's gonna end. And so both, then, from talking with Lynn.
I think
So.
that the AP exam is on a 5-point scale,
Yeah.
maybe that's why they do it, and 3, 4, and 5 are all, depending on the institution that you, the higher education that goes to, and what the program that you're in.
Instead, we're using decimals
Oops, I went the wrong
to
one.
make the gradation clear.
So,
Next year.
next year.
Not
Next, not this year. So the current standard,
I know.
the current scoring system that we're using right now is that, and I just want to show this again because I showed it in the yellow. If you took that standard 1 and went across that average, you would get an average of a 2. It's rounded to the nearest whole number. And we're rounding the standard scores to the 10th. But a trend score, you might look at that, if you look across that standard 1, you can see how the student's progressing. And really, they deserve a 3 because we don't want to penalize them for their learning, but they're ending pretty stable around a 3. They had 1 4, but if you look at those last 4 assignments, it's 3 3 4 3. In my mind, if it were myself, I would say, hey, that's a 3, that's not a 2. Let's not go with the average here, okay? So you can see how that we're encouraging our teachers to do it, but the teacher must have evidence of it. And it's a teacher, just as it always has been for scoring, it's the teacher judgment. There's always been teacher judgment in grading. There is no grading system anywhere that I've ever known of that doesn't have subjectiveness and teacher judgment in it. They all do.
And so in the way this is communicated to kids, they can look and say, when is my next time to demonstrate standard 2 in learning or something?
Yeah, they talk with the teacher about that. They can talk with the teacher about, and then we really wanted to make sure the basement was the average, so everyone knew what the bottom was. And if you show that growth, talk with your teacher about it. Have a conversation with the teacher.
And this is what is in all of the course syllabus for the students to be able to access and parents.
The last thing is the live report card, which is up in Power School, and we need to do a better job of providing training opportunities for parents. We haven't done that yet. Frankly, we just haven't had the time yet to get there. But we actually knew it went up before, as we were testing, it was up, and we had people accessing it. We were just testing, because we can't test anywhere but on the live system. So you'll see at the end of this, this you will see is redacted. I want to thank one of our faculty members who will remain anonymous, but they were willing to have their kids redacted and shown. But this is an example of our live report card. And you'll see that this is a semester score right now. You see a semester 2 and a year 1. For kids that are in year-long classes, there will be no semester 2 score. There isn't a way in Power School to take that column out. I wish I could take that column out. Power School's default reports will not let us take that out.
What do you mean there will be no semester score?
There will be no semester 2 score for a year-long course.
It'll all show in semester
So-
one.
It'll all show in
You have
here.
semester one and a year one,
Okay.
but you will not have a semester two score. That was
Okay.
one of the confusions from last year,
Yeah,
was that, hey, wait a minute, my semester score is higher than my year-long score. Why is that? We were able to get it so we don't have a semester two score, but you get a year-long course. Because people are used to, hey, they're used to an old Kearney unit system
Right.
where you had your quarter scores,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had your exam, you had usually 40, 40, 20, that got your semester score. You did that again for semester two, and then you averaged the two semester scores.
so parents should be able to look at the year score, let's say on page 2, reading, writing, language, speaking, and listening, average those, and that will
No,
be their.
no, that's what we're saying, they shouldn't be doing that. You would see a semester one score, that's where they were at the end of semester one. Then you will see a year one
Right,
score.
no, I'm saying that they're gonna look at the year score, because semester one scores won't count. They're gonna look at the year score for each of those standards, average it together, and come up with the AP Lang course proficiency average.
Yes, sorry, yes, yeah. Yeah, and so one of the things it's been able to do is we able to have a course proficiency average for each course. You will also see that, you may see the, let me make sure I say this correctly. So you'll have all the content area ones, and then if you start on page 3, you'll see the transferable skills scores at each course. And you will see some courses, everyone has self-direction and responsible involved citizenship, but some courses have added other transferable skills because they've identified that there's enough learning opportunities, enough assessment opportunities to score that transferable score.
So those transferable skills at the end of year one for AP Lang will also be averaged in with the standards, reading, writing, language, and speaking and listening to come up with a year proficiency point average score.
So I can't answer that yet, Susanna, because we have not tackled that, how we're gonna bring transferable skills into the PPA yet.
It should be in the GPA.
I agree with you, Bridget. I want to make sure we do it right and that we get the right weighting behind it. And if we rush it too fast, we may not get it right. And that's what we've learned from our past work.
Yeah. So I'm gonna reiterate what you said, which is, I think especially for the juniors, it's important for them to understand how they're being measured.
I understand that.
So I'm just gonna put that out there.
I get that. We can't solve everything today. I wish I could. To do it right, which is having people in the process. The last thing on the sheet is where we're going to for next year.
And we have the next score.
Yeah, it's up here somewhere. I just don't remember which way it is.
Yep.
Okay. So this is what we're looking to have for our scoring guides, and we're having, the departments are in draft scoring guides to use content language along with it, because as we heard, have the same scoring methodology with the same rigor in every classroom. So and this is still draft, because one of the things that rightly said to us by our teachers is, hey, we've got to define kind of like, what does similar context mean? What does independently mean? What do those adjectives and adverbs mean in an academic sense? So we're having to get into those definitions. But right now we're looking at a 2.5, a basic proficiency is where credit will be awarded. And there will be a 3.0, and then a new one is the 3.5, which is a proficiency plus. We don't know that that's going to be the name of it. It's our, like I said, draft. We're playing with language right now. We want to be clear and concise. That's what we're really trying to do. And so we're trying to find a place that, this is the idea of that we wanted to have more gradation of, once you've reached awarded credit, that you get it, that you have multiple levels to show where kids are at. And so one of the things that's a discussion point right now is, in some competency, mastery, proficiency-based systems, you write a rubric description for each of those levels. In some, you only do it for the whole number of levels, and you actually looked at, hey, the kid's got some in a 2 and some in a 3, I'm gonna call that a 2.5, okay? That's the way scores would happen on individual assessments. They would have this either half, whole number, or 2.5 or 3.5. We had a little bit of discussion, should we have a 1.5? I don't think we're getting any traction on that. It was asked. But this is our way of having basically 4 scores.
We do that as 0.
We did add a 0, that's the other thing. If we don't have evidence of learning, that's what a 0 is.
The other thing is that some classes that would require a higher level of proficiency in order to go to the next level, for example, maybe a foreign language or an upper level math course, they could say you get credit at 2.5 for this class, but in order to progress to the next level, you have to be at a 3, for example. So they do have the discretion to, and that would be outlined in their requirements for the class.
So that's where we're at this point. We are trying hard, as I said earlier, and I think we're gonna be there from what I saw just yesterday, of having transcripts out for all the underclassmen this month, end of this month. They may, I had a parent ask me today through email, how are we gonna get them out? And I think we'll go as far as mailing them to everyone. I'd like to have it where an adult can have a conversation with the student as they're being handed that. I just don't know about timeline and how that's gonna work. And I need to work with our colleagues up at VFA on that. We're also trying to be, another question that we've had is what about academic awards? We haven't tackled that one yet. Because we're trying to get it, we wanna have it really clear starting next school year that we have descriptions of what it means to get these different scores in all the classes, and that we have a clear methodology for scoring that everyone understands, and that we're using that methodology universally across the system. So that's a heavy lift right now. The other thing we need to talk about is consistency and transferable skills, which means we're gonna need to do some work analysis this year. If we're looking at clear and effective communication, and it's in Spanish versus English versus physics, how do we all judge that the same? And so that's some big work that we need to do, because if we're gonna put it in the GPA, which I said I believe we should do, we've gotta have consistency across how we're judging those, and we have some rubric work to do there, because we took the state of Vermont rubrics. They are what they are, but they could be a lot clearer and a lot more, have a lot more definition to them for students and parents and for teachers.
So you're working on academic awards, and I'm assuming that also on there used to be an honors program based on academic content. The last couple of years have been based on transferable skills. Has that, and I'm assuming that's still a work in progress.
That's what I'm saying. We haven't tackled any of that recognition.
So there won't be obviously honors or high honors after the first semester.
For this
Yes.
semester, it will be status quo.
It'd be as we've been doing it with transferable skills.
Will that be the same for academic awards?
That's why I said I can't answer going forward.
Okay.
I don't know about pins. Pins were done, we have to figure that out for the seniors, because they usually get their pins around graduation.
But also for like the junior class this year.
Right, they get their pins next fall. I want them to know, Susan, but we haven't tackled what that's actually going to be.
Do we know what it's gonna look like for the seniors?
I don't have that either.
Okay. All right.
We're doing as much as we can with the resources we have.
I understand it's a huge mission and tons, I totally get that. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to figure out for my, my daughter that's graduating, and also for Maya, and all the other juniors.
And everybody.
Yeah, especially.
All juniors and seniors.
Yeah. Yeah, and all the kids. It's
So I'll say it again, this is a 3-year lift we're trying to do. We've done, in my estimation, we've done 18 months of work within 4 months.
Yeah.
We're going, but
Yeah.
I can only go so fast. I'm burning people out left and right.
Right, and I guess, what we brought up before is all of that appreciated. Is there any possible way to possibly divide those resources to have a working team working on the global, all of the work that needs to be done from the ground up, and then any kind of prioritizing to what needs to be communicated to and understood by the junior class in their most important academic year? So to me, that's work that could potentially be happening simultaneously.
I understand that. I'm doing what I have for resources. I've got
It's
everyone
not
on
really
that.
an answer.
It is, I'm telling you, I don't have any more resources.
We're building the foundation which a lot of these decisions have to be based on as well. So if we start making plans apart from that foundation, then we're gonna end up with inconsistency once again. And so we have to kind of take it step by step in order to make sure that we're going to be consistent across the board.
And I totally appreciate that, I really do. So I guess one of the specific questions that I asked about was around the AP. So if you could please work on that piece at least and communicate that broadly to juniors, I think that right there would be one of the examples that I'm talking about. I think that's kind of low-hanging fruit that could happen without disrupting the groundwork that you're doing. So I think that there are some things that could be done in terms of making sure that everybody's on the same page, in terms of making sure that people are being trained as to how to look at these things. So I'm not trying to take away from any of the work that's being done. It's not my intention here. But I still think that there is a tremendous amount of misunderstanding and discrepancy within, clearly, across all grades, but really important for those people in their junior year. Clearly for the seniors as well. I mean, and I think that a lot of that work has been done, which is great.
I dare say, actually, Joe, more important for the juniors, because what really matters is transcript at the end of the senior year or junior year for the students that are going on to higher, academic learning institutions.
Are you guys all set with your presentation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any other questions from the board for Bill and Sarah? Okay. Anybody in the public have questions?
So throughout this whole meeting, all I've been hearing is parents and department heads having say in things. There has been no student communication with anyone. So I want to know why students haven't been asked these questions, why this hasn't been brought to their attention, because as a sophomore, I have been told none of this.
I'm just trying to turn this off. We haven't had the time to get to it, and that's the sheer honest truth.
Is there a plan to involve student voice? Like you did with the seniors? I
Yeah.
think that was a big important part. So is there a plan to involve the underclassmen?
Not at this point, because we gotta build the system first.
Bill and I did go around to the junior advisories a few weeks back and did update them on the status of new transcripts were being built to come out and explaining the process that we're going through. We haven't made it down below the junior class.
Any other questions?
Can I ask the question of why are we expecting our children to live in a house that the foundation is not even built yet? You're asking our kids to go to school on a daily basis, not understanding the grading system, to work with teachers that are inconsistent, and to provide context around things when they haven't been informed of the system. We're not ready for this. The statewide mandate was to have proficiency-based learning, not grading. It sounds like we don't have the technology in place. It's building a lack of trust which is causing frustration for the administration, and it's disadvantaging our children. We need to understand a timeline, consistency, and when this is going to happen so that we can feel that we trust the administration with preparing our kids for the next steps that they have worked their whole life to plan for. And now we're causing anxiety and stress in our children when mental health issues are a rising issue in the United States. This trust and lack of confidence is causing a greater problem. And I have a list of about 17 questions for you. I know we don't have the time tonight, I'll put them in an email for you, but I think that needs to be shared with a greater group of people. You have concerned parents, and the concern is, are we disadvantaging our children? For implementing a system we are not ready for. Can we have a timeline? I guess that's my final question. Can we have a timeline that we actually stick to?
Yeah, I think we've been giving timelines in the parent forums, and we're on those timelines right now.
They're very gray timelines. March, what does March look like? We've been working on this for 8 months. It's going to be March and then system issues. Now it's June. And we're at the second semester and final grades. And then everybody leaves for the summer and we end up in September exactly where we were with this year's seniors.
Thank you.
I don't think that's a lot to ask.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sue?
Well, so are you gonna email that list to someone that?
I'll email you and Nina on the board and then also email it to the administration.
I'm gonna just make a statement, and I've said this to both Bill and Kevin, and I know that, Bill, you were handed a lot when you started, and I appreciate all the work that you've put into this over the last few months. I feel like as a taxpayer, I don't have a child at BFA yet, I have one that's probably going there, maybe, right now. I was on the school board. Our final question that we always asked ourselves when Jim Farr was the chair, is this what's best for kids? And I'm very concerned right now about what we're doing to our kids. And I really think we need to pause, right? Why are we doing 18 months of work in 4 months? Like, why can't we pause, go back to the GPA, the 100-point scale, like, and work this alongside to figure it out and do it as a statewide system. I don't know why I am, as a taxpayer, am charging my district with coming up with a grading system that's different than what they're doing in Stowe and Warsaw. I know you've said that that's always happened, that there's been discrepancies across the system, but why are we doing, and why are we in such a hurry, right? Like, why can't we just pause? And I know going backwards doesn't sound great to any leader, right? But I think sometimes that's what leaders have to do. They have to pause and take a moment and really think about what we're doing before we just roll this on top of our kids. And I'm so confused right now, and I've been to every parent meeting, I've sat down with the two of you, I've talked to teachers, and I've talked to parents, and I'm confused, and I'm an educated person, right? And I don't know what's going on. And so I'm feeling like this is not what's best for our kids, and I feel like that was always the question that we asked ourselves as a board when I was on the school board. Is this what's best for our kids? And I don't feel that it is right now. And so I would just challenge the board to think about pausing, going back to the old grading system until we figure out this proficiency-based grading, and we do it as a statewide system, and it's not left to Bill, who just started, with our system a few months ago in our community, is new here, and the rest of the administrators that clearly don't have the time to do the work that needs to be done to do the justice for our children. And I know that it would probably screw everything up for this year, but I'm my piece, and
That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Let's move on to item 6, the consent agenda. Do any of these items need to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion? If I don't hear any objections, the consent agenda will be adopted. Are there any objections? All right, hearing none, the consent agenda is adopted. Item 7A, policy F26 for security cameras. We had a first or second reading last time, and now we're looking for a motion to adopt the policy F26. Thank you, Joanna. Can I get a second?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, Al.
I would just mention, there was one change that one question that came up that you may have seen comments on, was there was nothing in this policy or procedure that would not allow videotaping in classrooms. And there was concern around the fact that typically, unless there's teacher wants it, there shouldn't be allowed for videotaping. And they were right, there was nothing in there about that. So the negotiations committee and the union have agreed on adding something to the next contract that says, in the master agreement, that says there'll be no videotaping in a classroom unless the teacher consents to it. So that's why we added the master agreement part in number 6. To make sure that they had that. Does that make sense?
So it's up to the teacher's discretion?
Yeah, there's always been a concern that for evaluation purposes and things, people we would tape them, and that we make it the teacher discretion because some teachers actually like to be videotaped for self-improvement, but we're not going to be big brother and look in on them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So we think language like that will be in the master agreement. Any other questions about this? Any other discussion? Okay, the motion is to approve policy F26 for security cameras. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 8-0. Item 7B, negotiations update. We continue to meet. We've reached agreement on some things. We've had some good discussions, and we will be meeting again next Wednesday. That's probably the update I have.
That's professional staff.
That's for professional staff. And the ESP, I believe, have met.
Yeah, we've met and we have gone over ground rules, and that was our first meeting. And we've agreed on dates and an agenda for the next meeting. So we're in progress.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, item 7C, Board Goals Subcommittee. So I think we didn't do very well with our attempt to create language at our last, or 2 meetings ago, I think it was. So I think it would be good for us to try to have a small group of people, say 3 or 4, get together and try to come up with language around the goal areas that we've talked about. I know that Nilda, Steve, and Joanna said that they would be interested in working on that. I don't know if anybody else, right?
I did, but I'm leaving the board,
Yeah.
so it may not be appropriate.
Probably not. You have one more meeting.
And the budget presentation.
Yes.
Well, who's counting?
So,
I'd volunteer if you'd be willing to meet up at the rehab.
you guys just have to work it out. I mean, I think that'd probably be fine. So. Okay, so should we go with those 4? Okay.
Please repeat them, Jim. Sorry.
So it's Nilda, Steve, Joanna, and Al.
And those meetings will have to be warned, correct?
Yep, those will have to be warned, so you guys have to coordinate somehow when you're gonna do the, you know, your
Can we
first
give that to
meeting.
you, Brenda? Yeah, thank you.
And how much, what do you probably only need a couple days for that, right?
You need 48 hours.
Yeah, that's a couple days. Okay,
Chuck, can I make a comment?
yep,
I'm on my cell phone, but it's the board agenda. I'm not like cell phoning my wife or something. So if you're seeing me, if the public is seeing me on my phone, it's because I'm doing.
you're not checking the weather report, okay.
Right.
I can confirm.
The Red Sox are losing, but
Well, I have to admit, I am checking the weather report.
He's gonna take the city to make
Yeah,
tomorrow morning,
yeah.
so.
I've got to drive to the airport.
I can help you with that.
I'm sure you can.
Oh, you should get together with Sean. He's already made up his mind.
like to help.
Oh, my goodness, you're good.
Still a full day.
70% chance.
Okay, thank you, guys. Item 7D, Fairfield construction update. Bill?
Well, it has my name on it, but I'm pulling two of my colleagues into this one, which would be Martha and Sean as well. We wanted to give you an update. The board was great, last meeting approving, Peak Construction, Peak CM, I'm sorry, to be our construction management firm. And we wanted to come back to you and give you an update. Since that, we've had time to meet with them and to start to refine our cost estimates for the project. That we'll have definite costs by the second meeting in March. And so we've had a chance to meet as a team, the whole construction management team, which includes Cross Engineering, Pearson Engineering, who works as a subcontractor across, who does the electrical, mechanicals within the building, the HVAC. Hunter Gomez, our clerk of the work, Sean, Martha, and myself. And we were really trying to get an idea of, we've had a rough estimate for the costs for the construction when the board approved us going forward last spring of 1.23 million. During that time, we discovered that some of the costs have increased and weren't in that initial estimate, mainly being the construction. Was that you?
No, no.
It's Jack.
Jack, not using his cell phone? He's not there, he left his cell phone.
That's the agenda.
Good. So that, some of the things that we've discovered is that in the initial estimate, the cost for general conditions and construction management fee and insurance and performance bonds were not included in that initial cost, which is adding about 11% to the current value of the contract. We've also, at a previous board meeting back in the fall, and I don't remember which one it was when we were updating you about Fairfield, we learned that there are many code issues within that building that we must address before we can do any construction. And so between the code issues and the moving the addition from the north side to the east side of the building, and with the skyrocketing cost in construction, especially labor. Labor market out there for any of you who are trying to hire right now is extremely tight. You cannot find people. And so the labor costs are going through the roof. We have about a $500,000 increase in estimated costs. So those two costs, plus holding a contingency of about $140,000, are taking us from a $1.23 million project to a $2 million project at the most conservative estimate we can provide. We're trying to get it really conservative. I don't want to come back and tell you it's going to be higher again. I said, Martha and I agreed, said, let's do this, and Sean, let's do this once.
Right.
So we said
1.3 to 2?
to 2 million, 1.3 to 2 million.
For the Fairfield project.
For the Fairfield project. We're going to talk about BFA, the next agenda item. So we've looked at what we can take out of the project. There's a couple of things for electrical, since there's code requirements to do it, we said we might as well do it. One's like a main, there's some, remember that initial building was built in 1964? The codes then, and how the electricity was put into that building now, do not meet codes now. And some of the things that we would do that don't meet, that aren't required by code, you might as well do it because it's really expensive later on to do it. So there's a couple of those in there, along with the parking. If we took that out of there, it would only save us $140,000. I mean, $140,000, which if we put them off, they're gonna increase, and we're gonna have contractors on site to do the work anyway. So, to summarize, the initial cost was 1.23 million. There's 137,000 additional costs for the general conditions. There's 500,000 in code and moving and work. And there's $140,000 held in reserve right now. That's pretty high contingency fund. We'll lower that in March. We'll get right down to, we won't have a contingency because it'll be a final contract for what it will cost. But putting those all together, get to the $2 million fee. And so what I've asked Martha to do, Martha and I and Sean, when we were talking, Martha said, well, let me give an update of where we are in the capital fund. So I'm gonna turn it over to Martha to kind of let you know where we are right now.
So with the FY19 close of business, we are actually carrying somewhere, I don't have a final audit, but it's pretty close to final, about 4.3 million in capital reserve. So once we deduct the items that have already been allocated to be spent out of those capital reserves, which includes the 1.23 million, we still have available about $3 million worth in the capital reserve. So if we needed to access the $500,000 to $700,000 would come out of that, almost $3 million available. If that was the board's discretion, right. We'd still end up, we would still have over $2 million in our capital reserve fund.
What are the findings or implications for not being up to code in a building where kids are? I mean, it seems like a concerning issue.
My understanding was
There's been a long list at school for a long time.
Yeah, it's deferred maintenance. It's deferred. Well, an example, we have to replace the whole fire alarm system. So that's $100,000 right there.
And until you go into the building to make any kind of renovations, you're okay.
It doesn't hit it, but once you go in.
Do any kind of renovations, they require you to do the upgrades to those systems.
It's a little bit like what happened to BFA. They were putting the sprinkler system in because we have to do anything else.
Right.
Okay.
We had to do that at City School too.
Yes.
All the wiring.
So, as I said, for the second meeting in March, we'll have exact costs. We've set up the timeline for bidding so that we'll have about a week before that second meeting in March to know exactly what the final, what's called the, I lost my.
GMP.
Gross, grand maximum price. It's something maximum price.
Yes.
And a guaranteed maximum price.
Guaranteed, that's the word.
Wow, I didn't think that out. Guaranteed maximum price.
Right.
So we sign that off with the construction management firm. They will not go above that dollar amount. And they hold some contingency on their side because of that. And we actually, in our bidding, said what that percentage could go up to because we didn't want them holding too much.
The bright spot is we went to the zoning review board on Monday night and they approved the construction project, so that's good news.
And you don't have to go to select board to do anything.
Neighbors are happy?
Yes, we do have to go to select board.
I'm going to have to go to select board about the manhole covers, because we're gonna have to put manholes into Park Street.
On the road.
But the review board approved the fact that our septic tanks are gonna be sort of within that right of way in the south. They didn't really have a concern with that, so we'll just need permission to put manhole covers in Park Street. But it went well.
Any other questions about this? We can move forward. Item 7E, BFA construction bid award.
So we are on a pause right now with the BFA bid award. We had we had 7 contractors who were pre-approved by you as the board. And that approval, one of them is Peak CM, and they said since they were working on the Fairfield project, they weren't gonna bid BFA, so that got us down to 6. We've had 2 others since tell us they're not bidding, so we're down to 4. Some of them came back to us Monday and said we'd like a little bit more time to bid. And we wanna make sure at least we can keep the 4 bidding. So we made a decision on Monday evening to delay the bid opening till next Monday to get that. So because of that, and we'd like to notify, we have a negotiation meeting, Jeff, next Wednesday.
Which includes a prep meeting.
Which includes a
At
prep meeting.
4:30.
And if we can get a quorum of the board, we could award, because you have to take the lowest contractor, this is just like we did with Fairfield. But if we can get a quorum of the board, we could award the bid award and keep moving forward and keep our timeline going with the BFA project.
And that could be a call-in meeting for the.
Yeah, it could be a call-in meeting too.
Oh, that's a good point.
If needed.
It would only last 5 minutes.
Do it
Yeah.
over email, right, technically.
If it's warned. Facebook.
Well, look,
We all apply.
Okay, so I originally was thinking that wouldn't be very good, but I guess, yeah, if people don't have to come in, 3 of us are already here.
Yeah,
We just need a couple people to call in. The next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Next
The bids will
Wednesday.
have to be in Monday, but we'll,
I was just gonna ask if we could, if we just do it, would it be easier to do it? I know we're starting at 4:30 for our prep meeting.
4, I've got.
Maybe it's 4, sorry, I'm doing it without my phone
was thinking
device.
4:30.
I'm keeping my device away, you notice that, Jeff?
I noticed it's not going off.
That too.
You're gonna be made an example.
if we were to do it at like 6,
Yeah, I was thinking like 5:45.
those guys can eat pizza a little bit longer. People
You
who
willing to do that, to let us
might
award
be
a contract?
working, because it shouldn't take
I have
long.
to ask my knitting ladies if I can call in for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll get word out about that.
Yeah,
Minus at the end again, what time? Good for you.
5:45
5:45, next Wednesday.
on the 12th of February.
This is Nelda.
Yes?
I have 4:30 for that meeting starting.
Oh,
I thought so too, I thought it was okay.
I just got my calendar and I've got 4, so I probably just put
You came early.
a general time, I guess.
I have 4:30 too.
Okay, it's 4:30.
4:30.
You're right, Nilda.
Thank you, Nilda.
Is that that's the 12th, right?
Yeah.
That's the 12th, yeah.
Okay,
So Brenda.
thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Have you already told them that? So, I mean, they,
All the contractors,
Yeah.
they were given written notification Monday night.
okay.
So what time's that call gonna be? Or
5:45.
5:45.
5:45?
I think we agreed. I'm not the one that probably should be answering that.
That's fine. Now everybody's using their phone.
Yes.
Trying to make sure we.
Okay, item 8A, budget informational meeting materials.
This is what you passed out.
Yes, this is last year's,
Yes.
and I thought we'd run through it and see if we want to use the same format. The data is not updated. Okay, so we have list of the board, the agenda, assume that makes sense. And then we usually go through, did the principals do presentations last year? Is that right?
I want to say, did they, each of them talk about their slide? I
Yeah.
can't remember one year from the
Yeah,
next.
I
They
mean,
all
but I think-
blended
They
after
did.
a while.
We've done
They
that.
had one slide each and got them talking.
I think that's good.
Are we going to have representatives, because that's during the school break week? Just want to make sure
What night is that?
you're aware of that.
Wednesday the 26th.
The 26th of February.
We'll figure that out. And,
Okay.
you know, if people can't make it, then I can talk about a slide.
Okay. So I will need something from each of the principals to update their information on their slides, and I'll send that out to you guys.
They probably already have it from the new campus.
Probably. And
maybe this is easy to pull it right from there.
Yep. Okay, so then we go through the budget. Pretty normal. Oh, you did update that page.
That one page,
Yep.
I didn't go to all the graphs though.
Yep.
So I didn't know if you still wanted to have all, these different breakout pieces. The next one is the expense budget by the three large categories.
Yep. I think that makes sense, and the next one makes sense.
Okay. And this one is basically the same kind of information, just broke out a little bit differently in wording.
Yep. And you might have different summary levels now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get into the tax rate information.
What time does the informational meeting start?
6 o'clock.
So I think all that's valuable.
Okay.
Tricky but valuable.
Yep.
And then we go through the examples for each community.
Yes. With the $200,000.
If anybody has a comment, just jump in here.
Yeah.
So then we're on the CLA adjustment. The tax rate comparison, that's probably good. We keep that in, and then again, how people will be affected.
Yeah.
That's good information.
Okay.
And then we go by town.
Yep. And then I typically put all the ballot items so that you can read through what's going to be on the ballot.
Okay.
And I will update all those to be the actual correct information.
So I think that's good. I wouldn't change anything, I don't
Okay.
think. Anybody have comments?
No.
Look all right? Okay, I will update that information and have it ready for the
Alicia
ones.
has something.
I have a question, but I don't think it
Yes.
should be included in this, but is it okay if we bring, when we did the budget presentation, where we asked for the reduction and each school kind of talked about their impacts, is it okay if we have that to reference?
Oh, I know what you mean.
I think that'd be important.
Do you know, because I feel like
Do you want
we
that on a
asked,
slide, or do you want that just
That was
have the
hard work.
information to talk about? How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I don't know if it would read well on a slide, but maybe if we just have
That
the
same,
sheets there
that
and-
same sheet that we handed
Yeah,
out when you
yeah.
did the board, okay.
Yeah.
I think
And we
you
can
could-
cover it somewhere.
You could have in a slide that, originally this is what was proposed.
Yeah,
and then
I can
the
do a
school
slide
board
that- We can maybe have the
asked for a
total,
reduction,
yeah.
and then
Just
it got
something.
reduced, and
Okay.
then,
And then we can have the details behind it.
yep, I can do that.
I wonder, we didn't talk about this last time because we did it on our own. Before you saw it, we cut $400,000 out.
So then that
Um,
would be,
I feel like that's valuable information.
So
for
that was before
taxpayers.
you asked for the other 400,000. So would it be apropos to add that too and say,
Yep.
this was the
Absolutely.
timeline and what we did?
Yeah.
initially we had this, administration went through it and made cuts, then we presented it to the board, and the board went through it, and we made additional cuts. And this is what we have brought to you. Okay, I can do that. I think that's great.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Good idea.
I think I'll put that like right,
Right after an inflammatory slide.
I think probably right after this one where it shows this is what we're bringing forward, then I'll do that one with
Yes.
the progress.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
And then we get into 10 slides of CLA.
Yep. Are you
Everyone
gonna,
falls asleep.
you're gonna go over that?
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on. Item 8B, communicating with the community.
You're welcome.
Sue brought this up last time, that she wanted to start a discussion about, maybe I could let you summarize it.
Well, I just think it's important for us to think about how we can better communicate with the community.
Yeah.
Because even as for a whole host of reasons. I mean, so I pulled up the BFA website this week, and found, I don't know if everyone saw that, but, oh, here it is again, I think. I don't know just what, but, it's got the Twitter, Facebook, administration blog, and Instagram, which is really important because
It's not on.
Well, I didn't put it.
Oh, I thought you were putting it on.
Oh, no. I showed it,
She's this.
I did this. Because in the past, just even me trying to direct people to the information that was posted on the website after the January 6th meeting, I saw it for about a week and then I was having to dig. So even having this here is, I think, less cumbersome for people that aren't necessarily good at this kind of, good at this kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's one thing. I'm also gonna say, just even if we can keep, so I look at the, for me, the website's really tough to negotiate, to look through.
Yeah, it's not a great, it's a new one.
What was that?
And it's a newer
Yeah,
website.
so I went on looking for the course syllabi, assuming it would be under parent, student, and didn't find it, so it's like, it feels like I have to search a lot, so, I mean, that's, I don't know if there's a better way that we can have the community access the website easier. That's one thing.
And I would tell you, we can definitely look at that. I've heard the same thing. Part of it is our constraints with the particular particular web manufacturer that we're using.
The platform.
The platform, thank you. And what they allow and what they don't, relative to flexibility. And, but I think that's a good point, Susan. We could look at it more. We have struggled ourselves with it to be able to do what we'd like to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with Sue on that.
I'd also like to see, like, I know, I would like it, like, as a parent, if at the different open houses, there was an opportunity to help parents navigate, like, we've got smart screens, we have ways to get them online and to show them how to access different things, or like, your kid's absent, what number do you call, like, those FYIs or things like that would be helpful, I think, for me as a parent, and for people who don't know maybe what that looks like or haven't been on the website.
You talked before about not having, time to do that training. I mean, you guys can't do everything, but, we have an IT group, then, wondering if one of them would be able to provide some parent training on these details.
Do we have any idea how many people have downloaded the app
What app?
for the phone?
I will
Maple.
tell you, at least for me, the app isn't working. It crashes.
You
It's
have
not
to
stable.
uninstall it and reinstall it.
Yeah,
I did.
It's not a very good app.
The Maple Run app, like on.
There actually is, you can download a Maple Run app, which I actually like,
Needs updates.
but maybe it needs updates on that, so.
I would say, I'm gonna say the same thing for Power School. That, I don't know if it's education, I don't know, for me, I mean, I was on the phone with someone from IT today trying to get on, and she couldn't help me get on. Yeah. So it's really, so I'm gonna have to call back tomorrow, and not that she didn't try, I mean, she's very pleasant, tried hard, and, we were both at a loss, but when we talk about, communication, and, it's like sometimes I can get onto Power School, and then sometimes I can't, and it's frustrating, right? Because I haven't been able to get on Sarah's. I don't even know if she would get a report card as a senior. But yeah, so I think that not only from like a website standpoint, but also what I was really thinking of was, when I thought about the meeting that we had, the community meeting to talk about the principal search. There was less than 10 people there, and 2 of them were board members. One was an administrator and one was a teacher. And to me, that's sad, so I don't know if there's a better way to communicate with the community.
Well, what would you suggest? I mean,
How often is stuff put in the messenger?
Anyway, Bill, your Friday blog, who does that go out to?
We send announcements to all the parents, all the listservs. We send an email just letting people know that's been updated. Basically to try to keep traffic going to them. We're seeing Have you pulled up the
It
numbers
goes
here?
out to about 1,000 contacts, emails.
Emails that we're sending out. You
It
know,
also goes out on Facebook and on Twitter, the link. So everyone that's connected to that also has access to the blog.
and have you looked at the analytics?
The analytics, I can look
Sarah,
right now.
Sarah will pull up the analytics on it. We know we've been increasing traffic each week.
And you're tracking how the click-throughs come, so like if it's an email?
No, we didn't, we have a free version.
Okay.
We didn't pay.
I was like, oh.
We're using Blogspot, so we're using the educator free version, which is better than the general free version. But we weren't gonna pay the $1,000 a month or whatever it is. I'm kind of jesting in that way. I don't
And
know.
it goes out every Friday, you said?
Every Friday.
So we have between, depending on the post,
We have sometimes within too.
yeah, so depending on the post, between like 25 and 245 views. So people are picking and choosing which ones they want to view.
How do parents sign up for it, or is it just
They don't.
something?
We send it to every parent.
So I'm asking is she's questioning it because you don't get it, right? Are you saying? you
Well, I do. I was just actually going through my Hotmail account trying to see if I got it in this past week, and I don't know that I have.
Yep, it was sent on Friday.
No. No, I understand that. I'm wondering if.
I was told to go through
No,
Teresa and I
I
did,
didn't.
but I'm still not getting anything.
So
that
I
means
know that I
your
get
email
some of
is
the
not
time.
updated in the system.
I gave them, because I was Franklin Northwest and that, switched, so that's why I wanted to make sure I updated it, because I'm sure things were going to Franklin Northwest, but I can't access that any longer. So I gave them my new email and my cell phone number, and I'm still running, I don't have anything yet, that's all I can say.
So is this information being pulled from Power School?
Yeah,
Whatever is it
yeah,
loaded at
that's
Power
what's in
School?
Power School. People also have to check,
Spam.
you have to check spam, you have to
Yeah,
check
that's what I'm
junk mail, because I've
Maybe
responded enough with parents myself, and they're like, oh yeah, there was in the junk mail. So
Okay.
please make a filter that allows, because most, especially Gmail,
Yeah.
will say, nope, that's a spam coming at you.
Okay.
Because we're pushing out 1,000, that's the
Sure.
typical thought of a spam.
Okay, so generally, the Connect Now, or Connect Now? Blackboard Connect message will go out anywhere between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock on a Friday. And that will also be connected to Twitter and Facebook at that time.
That's spam. Whatever, I'll figure it out.
And does anybody else have any other thoughts as to how to reach out to people? I mean, there's a lot of different kind of
So
communications we want to need, like, there's upcoming dates, then there's information, which is more detailed, and gonna have more bulk behind it. There might be some areas that work better for some kinds of things than others.
Well, and this will inform the goals discussion and conversation, I imagine too, but communication is one of the board goals that we
Yeah.
want to work on. So the board it might not be just an ask or a lift for administration, but how can the board assist? Like, how do we identify those needs and how do we push it out? And how do we get other, like, friends of city school, or if town has a parent group, like, how do we use the people who are already in support to help bring that information and push it out into those different places instead of putting more on staff that way too? How do we support that?
Yeah.
So for example, how will we get the meeting that's on the 29th, maybe, the Wednesday night? 26th. How will that be advertised?
Budget information.
That's actually some stuff I was gonna go over with the superintendent's report, but to do it early, that one is always done through newspaper. Just about everybody in this room has assisted with an insert that's gonna go in the paper twice, on the budget. It'll be on website, it'll be on Facebook, all those areas. Help me out, guys, on what I might be
On
missing.
Facebook, are you gonna create an event for it?
I don't think we do that, we do it but that doesn't mean we can't.
Just because every time you say you're interested or might go, your friends all see it, so every time somebody looks at it or clicks on it or might say that they might go, it just kind of
Yep,
bump it.
yep.
Front porch forums.
Yeah.
Which is something that Bill said to me. He said, if you want to get community engaged, whenever somebody shows up at a meeting, you have to tell them at the next one, invite 2 of your friends. and it'll just multiply.
So maybe even if we could put it, I don't know if there's a way, like on the website, when you first log on to the website, the BFA website, if it could be, and I can't even get to it.
Or something.
Yeah, where it logs on, you see Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the blog. If there could be, upcoming important meetings.
We've done that before for BFA.
I think
Maybe
that's.
that can be done.
Yeah, I think that's, it seems like when I pushed that link to some of my friends, it showed up right away, and then it got buried. So even something like that, because it's not, like, when I go to events right now, it's not in the events list for BFA. And, I mean, it's for all the schools, but.
Right. What about texting too? I mean, I know we get alerts through, like, if there's the schools closing or something. Can we use that system for something like this too? It's convenience, that's all. I mean, because people they want convenience.
Yep.
It was interesting,
like an all-call?
I read last week, I think, that Burlington's decided that they're gonna expand their use of their emergency system to do, when the streets are closed because of snow, they have to plow, things like that.
And potentially there's an opt-in option too, like, because I can imagine some people might not like that, and with data carriers and, do you know what I mean, like all of that stuff, I can understand there might be some issues, but I think it's a good opportunity to connect with parents and find out what are the best ways, what are the ways to communicate with you, the things you want to know. And that can...
Yes?
I think your system may already allow use of Google Calendars, which I think you can subscribe to. So if you were to post everything there, a lot of people would subscribe to those calendars and then embed the links.
Yeah, I've done that before with Dan Marlowe's calendar, which he just is like out there for everybody. So I see when he has meetings with people, but also I see sporting events. So, but you're right, yeah. So if you create a common calendar, that would be available for people to.
We do have a common calendar. It's on the district website.
Okay.
And Brenda's whispering in my ear because she doesn't know it all. I don't go to it, so I don't know where it is.
Yes.
So the point would be to make it easy to subscribe, because once you subscribe, it'll push it.
Yeah.
And then you'll get reminders.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's right there on the.
Yep.
Right? That's it.
But again, that's one of those, let's promote it. I think put it out at open houses, put it out when we're at community events every time to say, don't forget, find us online. Like your tagline, like you're leaving people with, like if you need more information, this is where to look. And if we have more of a keeper of all truth, that we know this is where to go for something that can be helpful for folks. I don't know.
And I think we have to think outside the box too for the non-electronic people. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't get the messenger and they don't, do electronic stuff. And they're important members of the community as well.
So speak to that, like what's the best way to communicate then?
People have talked about going to the dump. People have talked about, having like a coffee hour at a school or a local, business establishment.
It's challenging because we have a lot of students who are homeless outside of our community. So they attend our schools, but they're homeless outside of the district. So communication is a barrier for those families.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them don't have access to technology or cell phones. So paper mail is what we currently do for the last known address that we have. But for a lot of families, the address changes constantly.
What about flyers to go home with students?
Yeah, we do that sometimes.
So Fairfield used to do the oldest or the youngest?
We do youngest and only.
Youngest and only.
And we still do. I send almost everything home electronically still. I mean, sorry, on paper. You know what I mean.
I didn't know what you meant.
Big difference.
The opposite.
Youngest and only, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Bizarre, Sean.
So I've always heard that's hit or miss, the kids just stuff in their backpack or whatever. But it's also that, in that case, we're talking about only reaching out to community members who have children in school.
Right, we want to be broader reaching.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a challenge, not just this year.
This isn't new.
If someone wants to give me some posters, I'll put them up around Fairfield. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Well, and I give my, I do a little budget report just for the town, and that's gonna go out to a bunch of places in Fairfield, like the community center and Stones and Fairfield Market.
Yeah.
You know, so like, you know, in Fairfield, that's kind of an easy proposition. Here,
Right.
there's a whole lot more
Yeah, yeah.
places you gotta hit.
And that's a good opportunity once a year, but it's not, you know,
Yeah, it's not all the time.
once a month for a certain meeting that's going
Well,
on.
Fairfield might be, but.
Well, libraries have boards where things can be posted too.
Yeah.
Grocery stores. Say grocery stores, everybody goes to. Yeah.
Yeah,
That could
usually
be
you're trying
my
to get out
job
there.
when I'm
True.
like,
There you go.
on the go or whatever. Posting things to grocery
You're
stores.
hired,
To leave my
Sally.
car.
Well, you know, you do bring
I'd
up
be
a
happy
point,
to
like,
cook.
I work at our local food shelf, and we give out information at the local food shelf about stuff that's going on. And so, you know, if you dropped a bunch at CVOEO, East Fairfield, you know, well, Sheldon's gonna open up one soon. The hospital, I mean, it's, and maybe not for the, well, I would say for the important stuff.
I was just gonna say, so like, you know, you're talking about, you know, flyers and all this, but how often would you be thinking that we would pull something together, and what kind of information would you see that level of
So-
saturation? of
I've been to the last
information?
bunch of years to the budget meeting. And we had one here maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I think there were 13 people.
Yeah.
I remember racing home from Stowe a couple of years ago after the state meets, and I got there at 7:10.
It was done.
And it was done, and I was the only community member there, and my husband, you know, once he got there, once he parked the car. But, so, you know, I'm saying for these, I think it's important for things like the transcript updates and any of the community events that we're having in terms of figuring out what's going on at BFA, those types of things, I think are really important.
Yeah, the principal sign in front of BFA, that was.
What was that?
The sign in front of BFA, we can advertise. like,
That's a good
that's-
one. I think that actually, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. That would be a really important one.
Okay, so I think we need some more thinking, but, I mean, I think we know what we need to think about.
Well, we also gotta realize, I mean, people, we can advertise what we want, but
We can't make people come to
Nope.
these meetings.
I understand that. I understand that,
But we want to invite them in, and they're
Yes,
welcome.
yes.
I was holding my tongue, but I was
Absolutely.
thinking, how do we know that people aren't seeing this and just choosing
And just
not to
choosing not to
come?
come.
Well, I think a
Well-
lot of people are, but I think that we can also do a better job.
I've certainly heard from plenty of people that said, I didn't know about that.
yeah, no, I'm
So-
not saying that it's not, but, you know,
So
over
that's,
the years with technology,
It
I mean, I
happens.
think it's been out there a lot more.
But I also think as a district, we need to look at what the investment,
It might be a good idea for Kevin or Bill and Martha to do a half hour or hour show on, half hour is better. On Channel 15.
Oh.
yeah, we used to do that every now and then.
Just do the budget and explain.
Well, then that would
Because
be,
the one thing
that
that
would be
people
Jeff
wanna hear-
and Kevin.
Martha show?
Well, Martha.
She would have the cards.
Yeah.
She'd have a PowerPoint, and they would be describing it.
The one thing they want to know is, how much is it gonna cost
Yeah.
more? And and the more information that they see and hear, and you answer that question, and which one of the flyers here, I think that would be a great opportunity. And
Except I have a face for radio.
Agreed.
Says Kevin.
he does. 3, 4, 5 times before the.
We'll talk.
So Jeff, I guess when people make that
They don't
comment,
necessarily always listen to the whole,
The whole presentation, yeah.
but they will pay attention to the
Yeah.
budget.
so Jeff, when people make that comment, like, what do they say? Like, I would have known about it if I saw it.
No, I don't hear that. You know,
Or just
no one
ask
gives
that
me
question
ideas.
if somebody
but-
does.
No one gives me ideas.
Yeah.
They just
No,
want
I'm
that.
just-
Or just think of asking, I'm just saying of like
could we respond that way? Because I don't know what else we could be doing, to be honest with you. I mean, we could
Well, there's a
have more
difference.
flyers.
We're
but-
talking about the budget meeting, okay, so that's one specific thing. And then we're talking about increasing communication in terms of, you know, our different towns, you know, including our entire SU. So to me, those are, you would go at that differently.
Agreed,
Yeah.
but, I mean, we still, I think we advertise the budgets, I mean, all you could, and we still get 2 people. But we get a lot of people that
And
watch the.
It's important to know that I constantly get people saying I saw it on channel.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, but people can sit back and it's recorded and they see it that way. I mean, and I think people are measuring it, 2 people show up, that we're not communicating.
Right.
So I don't,
And that's another reason why we're having the informational meeting
Yeah.
the week before, so it can be recorded and it will be.
Exactly.
Right.
played.
And you could put that on Facebook too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
link
good
goes
point.
And
out.
hit the different people different ways. I think, and I just want to caution against just making sure we're mindful about being wasteful with paper and materials and items. We're already spending so much money on that, and then putting the time and investment of folks and administrative efforts into that. So making sure that we're being aware of what that return on investment is and what we're getting from that, and how can we do that in a cheaper, more responsible way for environmentally and financially.
So
No, I
I'm
think we
gonna
have to
say,
pick our
this was a huge, huge, huge improvement to have these.
Those
And
4 buttons, right?
Those
there.
4 buttons, because then I'm not having to dig through, and maybe if each of the different campuses had these 4 buttons, they can go right to that, versus me having to dig through to figure out where the blog is, or where the January 6th meeting
Is there
is.
an opportunity to redesign this maybe for next year, but have like user input just to map some of this?
Brenda, what do you say
I'm
to
just
that?
curious.
You're the one that's kind of
I'm just
been
asking.
involved in some way.
Well, we are going to be bringing on a new director of information technology, and that might be an area that this person might have some expertise in. How's that? For passing that.
And I think one of the things about websites is back in the day, you would set up a website and you'd leave it there for years and years and years and years. And now, like every 3 to 5 years, progressive companies are updating their website and making sure that it's still usable. So that may be something that the new person will bring to us.
I will say that for the district site, how the schools feel, I would love to get input on, I thought I would look here, but I found it over here type thing. I would love that, because I can control that.
Because you can add dual links, like if you look for something somewhere, you can add it on both.
It's like I've got policies in 3 or 4 places.
Right, okay.
But
Links are
I would
free.
love to receive that.
But unless somebody says, well, I couldn't find this, you don't know that you can't find it.
Yep.
I have somebody at my work who just asked me for the bus routes. They don't bother looking at this.
Well, they know who
They
to go
figure it
to.
out.
You know, you could just put up a few reusable signs that say, you know, like the candidate signs that are stuck in a lawn, one in front of each of the schools that says budget meeting at BFA, you know, that would be wasting resources.
Yeah, I think around big things, like when you want people to vote on the budget, I remember hearing this at city school a lot. Parents would say, I forgot it was town meeting day. You know, I didn't go. So if you just had a sign out front
Yeah,
of
just one little
the
sign.
school,
Don't forget.
that said, yeah, don't forget to vote.
Right.
Your budget's, you know, on the line.
Yeah, just make it a permanent sign throughout every year, unless someone runs off with it.
Also, no school today.
Say, no school today. Nobody's going out to that sign.
No school today, town meeting day, reminder, don't bring your kids to that.
We do.
I know you do.
Don't laugh.
I know you do, that's what I'm saying.
Because they still come.
I know.
Even if the parking lot's empty.
Okay, so I think we need more work on this, but start.
But we could also just, for those people, like, I know Fairfield has town meeting day, I guess nobody else really does. But we could ask the community there what would be good ways to have two-way communication, right? That was the.
Yeah, and I think the answer is probably going to be different depending on what type of information it is we're trying to convey, but.
Yes.
um,
Good point.
Okay, item 8C. VSBA is suggesting that we rescind policy D02, which is about grade advancement.
Was that we said, policy D02?
Thank you all. So the motion would be to warn this
Warn the
to be
meeting,
rescinded at a future meeting. Can I get a second, Sally?
Second?
Okay, go ahead.
So what the VSBA is saying is that the wording there that's based on is no longer in effect. It doesn't take into consideration the proficiencies, and they've just gotten rid of it. So they're recommending to districts to rescind because it's not relevant.
Are they drafting alternative?
Not at this point, not that we've heard.
And it's not a required policy.
It's not a required policy.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 8-0, thank you. Got you nailed in.
I'm not opposed, I am in favor.
Okay, item 9A, warrants.
The warrants we approved as printed.
Thank you, Al.
Second.
Thank you, Sally. Any discussion about the warrants? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Looks like one's missing.
Opposed?
Do you need a paper clip?
8-0. Thanks to Alicia, the superintendent is ready to give his report.
So just a little bit further on the budget information, and hearing what we heard tonight, we'll try to get information even more out on this. But there is an insert that will be in the paper twice that is a really, really good, it's not totally done this year, but in years past, it's been very, very helpful to people. It's about a 6-page insert. It will talk about the budget, we'll talk about the schools. We'll have all the information that we'll do at the budget meeting, but in a nice, well-designed way. Dino Constantino, the person up at the tech center, is the one that helps design it with the paper's help. So I urge you to look at that and to talk to people about that. Once again, we'll have it on our websites. Tell them when we know precisely what days they're going to be in, so people will have something to look at. We'll also have the insert on our websites. And we've asked them, when they put the insert in, to link it in their paper online so that it can be linked to anybody to get that. So, when I know exactly when those things are going out, I'll let you know. Just for parents and a certain few administrators, tomorrow looks iffy.
Oh.
Friday looks dicey.
Iffy and dicey, are those technical terms?
Yes,
I was gonna do the
they're weather
tomorrow.
terms.
You gotta wait till we have it. That's what happened last time, and it all blew over.
And that's exactly it, and that's why we do wait. But what I do read in here is the fact, no matter what, the high school math department needs to go into school. But actually, the tomorrow looks like a very iffy call, one way or the other. So, just for parents to know, but we'll get it out as we normally do. The last thing I just want to say is, I know these are hard discussions around the transcripts, and we all know that. Having said that, I want to reiterate what some of the board members said, is that, thank you to Bill, thank you to Sarah for the work, thank you to people in front here, to the department heads. You really are putting the time in, and it is a slow process, and it's so, while we get told that all the time, we get it. But even if we had more resources that was talking about, to get the buy-in that we're trying to do right this time. You could have all the resources in the world, but you need to take the time to get people to buy in and to know what's going on. And I do feel confident this time that those people up there are working hard and doing it as fast as they can to get it done. And I feel for everybody on this and get it, but I just want to make sure it's understood that nobody's suffering.
So I want to say, I don't know if I came off wrong, but I, under no circumstances want to suggest that people are sloughing.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
And you didn't.
Yeah,
I just felt the need to say something.
Yeah, I totally get that this is a ton of work, and I think that Denise put it really well. We're trying to get 18 months done in 4 months. And I've said this to you, Bill, before. I don't know that, and you've said that you do understand, but as a parent, this is, again, critical. And I understand we want to get it right. I understand we want to get it right. For me, as a parent and a community member and a board member, it's hard when you don't know what that target is. If the students don't really know what the end game is, or how they're really going to be measured, or how they're going to get that academic award, or how they're going to get, I think it's, I don't know.
I live it every day with a junior in high school who's ultra, I said this to Denise this morning. And Kevin makes a joke to me about it, so I'm preempting your joke. She's very, very driven, and she's got spreadsheets going on colleges right now. And I live it every day with her, and she complains to me about the proficiency system in her school system. But I say, do the best you can, because that's the way it was before.
Yeah, but I think that I said this to you on January 6th. I think saying do the absolute best you can is different than saying you need to understand that at the end of semester 1, at the very least, that might be a half credit score. We don't know how it's going to end up, but it could be that even though it's for these dual enrollment classes, it could be that half credit at semester 1 will be averaged in to your transcript. I think that's a very different message than do the very best you can. Because had I known that semester 1 was going to be averaged into her transcript for half credit, I might have said, Sarah, that 3.8 isn't good enough. You need to get that up to a 4. That sounds terrible that I'm saying that. It sounds terrible or I might have said, that 2 that's not cutting it. You need to get it up to a 3. Because at the end of semester 1, that goes into your PPA. So I guess that was my point.
I did have a question. Just kind of going back to what Denise said. Was it thought of to pause and not rush? You guys, day and night, to go back to the grading.
I couldn't ethically do that as an educator.
Okay.
I wouldn't. You just wouldn't get me to do that.
Tell me more. Why?
Because I believe the old system, my professional judgment is the old system is one of the most inequitable systems we can have for grading. And that 100-point system advantages those who have and disadvantages those who have not. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to debate my feeling about it. That's where I'm at. That's
It was
where
just
I'm
more
at.
for an interim so it's not such a rush and, no matter what you do, it's not the timeline, it's.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be, it's like you're not doing it fast enough.
Yes.
And slow down, please.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like we're working with what we've got.
Yeah.
We also are doing the best we can with what we've got.
And that's why,
trying
yeah.
to get the buy-in all at the same time. So it seems like on many fronts it's not optimal. We know that it's not optimal, but we are working toward getting there.
It was just more giving you the time to do it, as opposed to, I'm not saying we want to go backwards, certainly we don't, but just giving you, I was just curious if that was even discussed.
That was my bottom line, because department heads asked me, I said, my bottom line is we go back to 100%. I said, I can't stand with you guys,
Even temporary.
even temporary.
Well,
I can be directed, but I just say that's where I'm at,
Yep.
as a professional educator.
No, I was just asking.
so, believe it or not, I've had 50 years' experience with education. And nobody wants change but a wet baby. And whenever you try to, everybody wants schools to improve and schools to change, but nobody wants schools to really change. Boy, when I went to school, it was like this, you know, everybody's an expert because everybody's gone to school. So it's a very frustrating thing to try to change anything. And if you really think about it, what is wrong with saying we want kids to show that they're proficient? That's what we needed all along. And if you're as old as me and gone through as much education, change initiatives like mastery learning, that basically was proficiency-based learning. We tried it, and then there was the behavioral objectives and standards and, you know, this and that. Been through all that, and in every case, there were a lot of people that would come up, and usually it was the parents with voice. Not too many people in the lower economic strata were as concerned as parents who thought their kids were going to be in the top 10. They were worried about being a valedictorian or salutatorian or whatever. And that's probably a negative generalization of mine, but it kind of, in my experience, trying to get all the parents as concerned as the parents of the potential top 10, to have an open house where I had a slam dunk contest, and that brought a whole lot of people, or to have food. Trying to do anything to get parents to come to informational meetings at school about curriculum and that kind of thing. So I was sitting here listening to the parents and feeling like I would love to meet with them and just discuss it, you know, but I'm just one board member and it's probably inappropriate for me to do that, not an administrator. But I also have seen people against change. Like when I put in a mentoring program, kind of like an advisory, we would more often call it an advisory group. Why are you wasting time, you know? My kid's an honor student, he doesn't need any advising. Believe it or not, that person's kid needed more advising than he realized as a parent. But, so whenever we've made change, there's resistance. And in fact, we've had the number system and the letter system for decades. And we're trying to go to a proficiency thing because we realize the state is mandating it, and we have a community that's involved, which is good. And so we have some resistance, but I think, I agree with Bill, you don't go back. You try to educate people so that they understand the system we're doing. And we try to take away fears, like colleges deal with homeschool kids. They adapt to the whatever system is coming to them. And homeschool kids go to college too, and they don't have any grading system like the schools do. So,
I didn't want to reopen everything. I felt the need to say something, and that the change is hard. And actually, in some ways, we are, I don't want to use the word backtracking, but going from a true proficiency system to more of a hybrid, which is what most of the big schools are doing now around the state. And
So I'm gonna just say, I didn't hear a lot of concern about change tonight, or fear about change. I heard concern about lack of clarity, and I'm just gonna, I'll end there.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
We hear you.
I would like to say one more sentence.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I think,
Joking.
I think the administrators, Bill and Sarah, and department chairs, and all the people that have worked on this, I know how hard that work is. Plus, they've got to deal with the fight in the bathroom and the this and that, and all those crazy things that happen at school. You know, busing issues and sports issues and all that kind of stuff. And I realize you have an extended staff to deal with those things, but people running a school have to deal with 100 things every day. I think you make 300 decisions a day or something like that. So I commend the work that you've done. It's unbelievable. I was very impressed.
Al, did you want to say something?
Well, my learned friend just spoke what I was going to speak, and being just a country boy, I'm going to say thank you to Bill and Sarah and to everybody. You came into a difficult situation to start with, and I think that the direction they're going in is in the right direction. You're taking the time to get it hopefully right this time. So I know from a parent's standpoint, it's very important to get there, but quick is not the answer. Steady and forward is the answer. So thank you for all you've done. I stay here and commend the fact that we are going to proficiency-based event. Those of us at the Tech Center have been doing that time in memoriam because we had to do the 1, 2, 3, and 4 long time ago. So,
Thanks, Al.
That's all.
Okay, good. All right, item 9C, board announcements. Anybody have anything?
Well, I can't help but say that the great state of North Carolina is now not only requiring first grade, but they are also asking youngsters to memorize times tables. And I don't think of that as looking backward. I just go into stores and people's computers don't work, and they have no idea how to make change. So just trying to solve some of those practicalities with a little bit of knowledge. Doesn't have to interfere with all this other stuff.
That's the other thing that you have to retire is an open doors cursive handwriting, remember?
Well, I just go to Fairfield. You can learn it there.
Sue? No? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Agenda items for future meetings.
Sally was going to say something.
Oh.
No, I was just going to say, don't forget that I do handwriting analysis too.
Oh.
I do it voluntarily, I don't get paid, but don't take that away, it's fun.
Well, one thing that I missed, did you guys say that you had another, did you put a date for the next parent meeting?
We have not. We have not. And we will give fair warning.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
I
we
just
have.
didn't know if I missed that.
No, we have not. Because I want to have information that people can react to.
Yes. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Did anyone go to the presentation at town school?
Yes.
Sue did.
Yeah. How was that?
It was good. I have information somewhere.
Okay.
I mean, it talked about the statewide
Yeah.
health insurance and talking points and the increases and and you probably got a copy of that.
No. No. But I've been talking to one of the experts there, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so just, we'll send out a reminder, but we will have a meeting next Wednesday. No.
There were letters that didn't get.
That was in the consent agenda.
Yep. You're talking about D? Staff changes in the grant?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. It's all part of the same thing.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so just, we'll send out a reminder about that, but we need 5 votes, right? So,
Yes.
there should be 3 of us there already,
5 votes.
and so I need at least 2 of you. So,
Will you send information to call in somebody?
Where are you gonna meet?
here, okay. We'll just come here. We'll send it out, because it's calling on. Okay, we do not have a need for an executive session, so seeing as how we're at the end of our agenda, we are adjourned.